Good day, my friends. I want to encourage you today to believe even when you don't see a sign, to trust even when there's no evidence in sight. Life has a way of making us doubt when things don't happen in our timing, when the situation looks impossible, when every door seems closed. But faith isn't about seeing. Faith is about believing before it happens. Too often we wait for a sign, for everything to line up, for the circumstances to look just right before we believe. But real faith says, I don't need to see it to know it's coming. I don't need proof to trust that the promise is on the way. When the farmer plants his seeds, he doesn't go out the next day expecting to see a full harvest. He knows that beneath the soil something is happening. It may not look like it, but in the unseen, the process has already begun. Some of you have been waiting, praying, believing for something to change. And you're wondering when you'll see a sign. I want to remind you, just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. There was once a man lost at sea, stranded on a tiny island. Every day he prayed for rescue, but nothing happened. He built a small hut for shelter, and one day while he was out searching for food, lightning struck. And his hut burned to the ground. He was devastated. God, why did you let this happen? He cried. But the next morning, a rescue boat arrived. The captain said, we saw your smoke signal and came to find you. Sometimes what looks like a loss is really a setup for your breakthrough. You may be in a season where nothing seems to be happening. You've prayed, you've worked hard, but the situation hasn't changed. Don't let the silence fool you. What you can't see is that behind the scenes, things are shifting, doors are opening, and the right people are being possessed. Your answer is on the way. Remember, faith is walking even when you don't see the path. It's trusting even when you don't hear a voice. It's believing even when there's no sign. Keep standing, keep expecting, keep believing. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. Faith is believing without seeing. It's trusting in what you cannot yet touch, holding on to a promise before it becomes reality. Too often we base our belief on what we can see, hear, or feel. If the situation looks good, we have faith. If the doors are opening, we trust. But true faith is not built on signs. It's built on confidence that what was spoken will come to pass even when there's no evidence to support it. Imagine walking into a dark room and flipping the light switch. You don't hesitate, you don't second guess it, you expect the light to turn on. Even before you see the light, you believe it's going to appear. That's the kind of trust we're meant to have. Not waiting for proof before believing, but believing because we know who holds the promise. There's a story of a little boy who was caught in a fire on the second floor of his home. His father stood on the ground below with arms stretched out, telling him to jump. The boy couldn't see through the smoke, but he could hear his father's voice. I can't see you, the boy cried. His father responded, but I can see you, and that's all that matters. That's faith. Trusting the voice of the one who sees what you cannot. When we only believe what we see, we limit ourselves. We become discouraged when circumstances don't line up. When the medical report is bad, when the financial situation looks impossible. But faith says, I don't have to see it, I know it's coming. I don't have to feel it, I trust it's on the way. Just because there's no visible sign doesn't mean the promise isn't unfolding. Think of the walls of Jericho. The people were told to march around the city day after day without seeing any change. Nothing happened the first day or the second or the third, but they kept marching, kept believing, kept trusting. On the seventh day, at the right moment, the walls fell. They didn't fall because of what they saw. They fell because they believed before they saw. Faith is acting as if the breakthrough has already happened, as if the promise has already been fulfilled. It's knowing that even in the silence, even in the waiting, even when nothing looks different, something is happening in the unseen. Delay doesn't mean denial. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Too often we assume that if we don't see immediate results, the answer must be no. But the truth is, timing is just as important as the promise itself. Some things take longer because they need to develop properly, and sometimes we're being prepared for what we've been asking for. Think about a caterpillar inside a cocoon. It doesn't become a butterfly overnight. It takes time for the transformation to happen. If you try to rush the process, if you force the cocoon open too soon, the butterfly won't be strong enough to fly. In the same way, what seems like a delay is actually a period of growth, strengthening, and preparation. When we plant a seed in the ground, we don't dig it up the next day expecting to see a tree. We trust the process, knowing that even though we can't see anything happening, the seed is taking root. The same principle applies to our dreams, our prayers, and our desires. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. What you're waiting for is developing beneath the surface. There was a man who prayed every day for years for a breakthrough in his business. He worked hard, did everything right, but nothing seemed to change. He felt like giving up, but he kept believing. One day, an unexpected opportunity came that changed everything. Looking back, he realized that if he had received that blessing earlier, he wouldn't have been ready for it. The delay wasn't a denial. It was preparation. When things don't happen in our timeline, we can get discouraged. We start questioning, why is this taking so long? Did I miss my chance? But the truth is, every season of waiting has a purpose. The delay may be protecting you from something you're not ready for yet. It may be allowing the right people, the right resources, or the right doors to align at just the right moment. If you're in a waiting season, don't let frustration steal your faith. Keep believing, keep preparing, keep trusting. Just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean it's not going to happen. What was promised to you is still on its way, and when it arrives, you'll realize the delay was part of the plan all along. God works in the unseen. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Many times we get discouraged when we don't see immediate results. We pray, we believe, we do our part, but nothing seems to change. The key is to understand that what's happening behind the scenes is just as important as what happens in the open. Think about a construction project. Before a building ever rises above ground, a deep foundation is laid beneath the surface. Workers spend weeks or even months digging, reinforcing, and preparing the ground. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, but in reality, the most critical work is being done below. The same principle applies to life. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. There's a story of a bamboo tree that illustrates this perfectly. When a bamboo seed is planted, it takes 5 years before it even breaks through the ground. During those years, it seems like nothing is happening, but below the surface, the roots are growing deep and strong. Then, in the 5th year, the bamboo tree suddenly shoots up over 90 feet in just a few weeks. If the farmer had given up in year 2 or 3, thinking nothing was happening, he would have missed the incredible growth that was taking place beneath the surface. Sometimes we expect instant results. We pray for healing, and when we don't feel different immediately, we assume nothing is happening. We ask for a new opportunity, and when it doesn't come right away, we think the answer is no. But the truth is, just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not working. There is activity happening in the background, things shifting, doors opening, people being positioned, all in perfect timing. When the Israelites marched around the walls of Jericho, they didn't see the walls start to crack on day one. There was no sign that anything was changing, but just because they couldn't see it didn't mean the walls weren't weakening. On the 7th day, the walls came down, not because they saw signs along the way, but because they trusted the process. You may be praying for something right now and wondering, is anything happening? I want to encourage you. Yes. Something is happening, just like the roots of the bamboo, just like the foundation of a building, just like the unseen forces that weaken Jericho's walls. God is at work behind the scenes. Don't get discouraged by what you don't see. Stay faithful, stay believing, and in the right time, what's been growing in the unseen will become visible for all to see. Don't let circumstances shake your faith. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us that can make us question everything. When things don't go as planned, when the doors we were expecting to open stay shut, when setbacks come one after another, it's easy to wonder if things will ever change. But real faith isn't based on what we see, it's based on what we know. And we know that just because circumstances look bad doesn't mean that God isn't working for our good. Think about a ship sailing through a storm. The waves may be crashing, the winds may be howling, and visibility may be low, but the captain doesn't panic. Why? Because he trusts his compass. He knows that even when he can't see the destination, the compass is guiding him in the right direction. The same is true for faith. You may not see a way out, but if you trust the course, you will get where you're supposed to go. There's a story of a young boy who loved flying kites. One day he was flying his kite so high that it disappeared into the clouds. A man walked by and asked, "How do you know the kite is still there if you can't see it?" The boy smiled and said, "Because I can feel the pull." That's how faith works. Even when we don't see the results, we can feel the pull of God's promises. We may not see how things will change, but we can trust that something is happening beyond what we can see. Too often, we let our circumstances determine our faith. If things are going well, we believe. If things are difficult, we start to doubt. But faith isn't meant to be shaken by temporary situations. If the financial report is bad, if the medical report isn't what you expected, if people walk away from you, none of these things change the promises over your life. Circumstances may change, but the truth remains the same. What was spoken over you is still coming to pass. Think about Joseph. He had a dream that he would be a great leader, but instead of things going smoothly, he was betrayed by his brother, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. His circumstances looked like the opposite of what was promised. But he didn't let his situation shake his faith. He knew that even in the pit, even in the prison, God was still in control. In time, everything turned around and he stepped into his destiny. You may be facing challenges right now that seem unfair. You may be wondering why things aren't improving. But remember this, your circumstances are not a reflection of your destiny. Just because you're in a tough place doesn't mean you're going to stay there. Hold on to your faith. Trust the process and know that even when it looks like nothing is changing, everything is working together for your good.
Stay faithful in the waiting season. One of the greatest tests of faith is trusting the process when nothing seems to be happening. We live in a world that thrives on instant results. Instant messaging, fast food, overnight shipping, but faith doesn't operate on our timeline. There will be seasons where we pray, believe, and do everything right, yet things don't change as quickly as we expect. The key is to remain faithful, to keep doing the right thing, even when it feels like nothing is working. Think about a farmer. After planting seeds, he doesn't check the ground every day, wondering if the crops will grow. He doesn't get discouraged if he doesn't see sprouts right away. He trusts that in the right season, the harvest will come. In the same way, when we are in a waiting season, we have to trust that what we've sown in faith will produce results at the right time. There was a man who desperately wanted a breakthrough in his career. He worked hard, showed up every day, and remained faithful, but nothing seemed to change. Year after year, he watched others get promoted while he remained in the same position. He could have grown bitter, but instead he chose to keep a good attitude. One day, an unexpected opportunity opened up, far greater than anything he had imagined. Looking back, he realized that the delay wasn't wasted time. It was preparation for something bigger. Waiting is never wasted when you're faithful. Sometimes delays are designed to develop our character. If we receive the blessing too soon, we may not be ready to handle it. It's in the waiting that we learn patience, perseverance, and trust. The waiting season is where we grow, where we learn to keep showing up even when we don't see progress. Think about David. He was anointed as king at a young age, but he didn't take the throne immediately. Instead, he spent years in the fields as a shepherd, then more years on the run from King Saul. It didn't make sense. He had the calling, but he wasn't in the position. He could have become discouraged, but he stayed faithful. He kept serving, kept trusting, and at the right time, he stepped into his destiny. You may be in a waiting season right now, wondering when your breakthrough will come. Don't grow weary. Don't let frustration make you walk away. Stay faithful in the small things. Keep believing, keep preparing, and know that the right doors will open at the right time. What's ahead is greater than what's behind, and when the season shifts, you'll step into something far beyond what you imagined. Look beyond the natural. It's easy to get caught up in what we see with our physical eyes, the challenges, the obstacles, the delays. But faith isn't about seeing with our natural eyes. It's about looking with eyes of expectation, knowing that there is more happening than what we can perceive. If we only rely on what we see, we'll be limited by circumstances. But when we choose to see beyond the natural, we open the door for the impossible to become possible. There's a story about a young man and his mentor who were surrounded by an enemy army. The young man panicked and said, "We're outnumbered. There's no way out." But his mentor remained calm and prayed, "Lord, open his eyes so he can see." Suddenly, the young man's spiritual eyes were opened, and he saw that they were actually surrounded by heavenly forces far greater than the enemy. Nothing had changed physically. The army was still there, but in the unseen realm, victory had already been secured. The same is true in our lives. You may be facing difficulties, a financial struggle, a health challenge, a dream that seems impossible. But what you see is only part of the picture. Just because you don't see a way doesn't mean a way isn't being made. Just because the odds seem stacked against you doesn't mean you're alone. There is more happening behind the scenes than you realize. Think about an artist painting a masterpiece. If you only saw the first few brushstrokes, you might think the painting looks messy or unfinished. But the artist sees the final picture before it's completed. In the same way, you may not understand why things are happening the way they are, but trust that the master artist is still working. What looks like a mess right now is part of a greater masterpiece that will be revealed in time. When Peter walked on water, he was fine as long as he kept his eyes on the one calling him forward. But the moment he focused on the wind and the waves, he started to sink. The wind had been there all along, but when he shifted his focus from faith to fear, he lost sight of what was truly possible. If we focus only on the problems, we'll feel overwhelmed, but if we focus on the promises, we'll walk through storms without sinking. You may be looking at your situation right now and thinking, "I don't see a way out." But I want to encourage you, look beyond what's in front of you, the closed doors, the delays, the challenges. These are not the final story. There is something greater happening that you may not see yet. Choose to walk by faith, not by sight. See beyond the natural and believe that the breakthrough, the opportunity, the healing, and the victory are already in motion. Keep your eyes on what's ahead, and you will walk into something far greater than you ever imagined.
A closed door can be a divine redirection. Too often we see a closed door as a disappointment, a failure, or even a sign that we've missed our chance. But what if that closed door is not rejection, but redirection? But what if it's not a setback, but a setup for something greater? Sometimes what we think is a loss is actually God protecting us from settling for something less than His best. Think about a child who wants to run into the street. A loving parent will close the door, not to punish the child, but to protect them from danger. In the same way, there are doors we desperately want to walk through, opportunities we're sure are right for us, but when they don't open, we feel discouraged. We may not realize it at the time, but that closed door could be saving us from unnecessary pain, delays, or struggles we weren't meant to endure. There was a man who applied for his dream job. He had all the qualifications, he nailed the interview, and he was sure the position was his. But in the end, the company went with someone else. He was devastated, wondering why he had been overlooked. A few months later, that company unexpectedly went bankrupt, and all employees lost their jobs. But during that same time, the man was offered a different opportunity, one that provided more stability, greater income, and a better future. Looking back, he realized that what seemed like a rejection was actually redirection to something better. Think about Joseph's story. He had a dream that he would be a great leader, yet everything in his life seemed to go in the opposite direction. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. Every time he thought things were getting better, another door seemed to close. But in reality, every closed door was leading him closer to his destiny. If his brothers had never betrayed him, he would have never ended up in Egypt. If he had never been falsely accused, he wouldn't have been placed in the position to interpret Pharaoh's dream. What looked like setbacks were actually set-ups for something greater. We often pray for open doors, but sometimes the best answer is a closed one. That relationship that didn't work out, that job you didn't get, that opportunity that slipped through your fingers. It may have been painful at the time, but what if it was leading you to something better? What if that closed door was a blessing in disguise? Instead of getting discouraged when doors close, trust that there's something better ahead. A closed door doesn't mean the end of the story. It just means the story isn't finished yet. Keep moving forward, keep trusting, and know that every door that closes is positioning you for the right one to open at the perfect time. What's ahead is greater than what's behind, and the redirection you didn't understand today will make perfect sense in the future. Your faith will be rewarded. Faith is never wasted. Every time you trust without seeing, believe without proof, and hold on when everything around you says to let go, you are planting seeds that will produce a harvest in due time. The waiting, the struggles, the unanswered prayers, they are not in vain. When you stay faithful, when you refuse to give up, when you keep believing even when there is no sign, you position yourself for a breakthrough that is greater than anything you imagined. Think about an athlete training for a race. Every early morning workout, every hour of practice, every sacrifice may seem small in the moment, but on race day, the reward becomes clear. All the effort, all the unseen preparation, all the discipline pays off in victory. In the same way, faith is an investment that never returns empty. You may not see the results today, but every prayer, every step of faith, every act of obedience is leading to a moment of fulfillment. There's a story of a woman who had been waiting for years to start a family. She and her husband had done everything they could, but no matter how much they prayed, the answer seemed delayed. It would have been easy for them to give up, to assume that it wasn't meant to be, but they held on to their faith, trusting that what was promised would come to pass. After years of waiting, in the most unexpected way, they received the news they had longed for. She was expecting a child. Looking back, they realized that the delay wasn't denial. It was part of a greater plan. Faith is often tested in the waiting season. It's in those moments of silence when there's no sign of change that you have to decide, will you give up or will you keep believing? Those who hold on, who refuse to quit, who keep standing even when it doesn't make sense, will see the reward of their faith. Think about Noah. He was told to build an ark when there wasn't a cloud in the sky. People must have laughed at him, doubted him, called him crazy. But he didn't need a sign to believe. He just needed faith. And because he remained faithful, because he kept building when there was no proof, he and his family were saved when the flood came. You may be facing a situation right now where you don't see a sign. Maybe you've been praying for healing, for restoration, for a breakthrough in your career or family, and nothing seems to be changing. Let me encourage you. Don't give up. Keep believing. Keep expecting. Your faith will be rewarded. Doors will open. Dreams will come to pass. And what you've been trusting for will become a reality. It may not happen the way you expected. It may not happen on your timeline, but it will happen at the right time. What's ahead is greater than what's behind. Your faith has not gone unnoticed. And when the moment comes, you'll look back and realize that every step of faith was worth it. Closing encouragement. As you move forward, remember this: faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting even when you don't see a way. It's about believing when there is no sign, holding on when circumstances say to let go, and knowing that delays are not denials. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. God is working behind the scenes, aligning the right doors, positioning the right people, and preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Don't let doubt, disappointment, or delays shake your faith. Stay steadfast, keep believing, and trust that what's meant for you is on its way. When the time is right, when everything has come into alignment, you will see what you've been hoping for come to pass. And when you look back, you'll realize that every closed door, every waiting season, every unseen moment was all part of a greater plan. So walk forward with confidence, believe without a sign, trust without proof, and know that your faith will be rewarded in ways beyond what you could ever ask, think, or imagine. The best is yet to come.